One of the first casualties of the War of Independence was Crispus Attucks, a black merchant seaman killed in the Boston Massacre of 1770. Slaves and free black men fought together in the Continental Army, but after the Revolution, African Americans were largely barred from serving. Some ignored the ban and fought valiantly in the War of 1812. Among the most famous black units of the Civil War was the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, whose heroic assault on Fort Wagner in South Carolina became legendary for the display of bravery against all odds. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation prompted thousands of freed and escaped slaves to fight in the Union Army and Navy. Their brave efforts helped to defeat slavery and gain the vote for African Americans. After the war, the Army maintained a number of black units. In the West, they helped preserve order on the lawless frontier. Native Americans called them Buffalo Soldiers. Among their feats in the Spanish-American War, the all-black 10th Cavalry Regiment assaulted San Juan Hill. With America's entry into the First World War, heroic units of black soldiers included the 369th Infantry Regiment. Known as the Harlem Hellfighters, they served on the front lines longer than any other American unit. A little over 20 years later, thousands of African Americans served courageously. During the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Dory Miller, an African American Navy steward, manned a machine gun to shoot down Japanese Zeros. African Americans continued to serve heroically during World War II, although in segregated units. Nonetheless, the barriers were slowly being broken. Black women were now able to enlist in the armed forces, and the number of black officers was increasing dramatically. Benjamin O. Davis Sr. had become the country's first African-American general in 1940. His son, future Air Force General Benjamin O. Davis Jr., commanded the 332nd Fighter Group, also known as the Tuskegee Airmen. Their outstanding performance helped to bring an end to segregation in the military. In 1948, President Truman issued an executive order directing the military to give all soldiers equal treatment and opportunity.
There is no justifiable reason for discrimination because of ancestry, or religion, or race, or color.
By 1954, the Army had become the first major U.S. institution to integrate. A decade later, during the Vietnam War, blacks and whites made up an integrated fighting force. Joe Wynn is a veteran of the Vietnam era. Joe remembers the early 1970s as a time of challenge and change.
We were coming off of that period of the late 60s, the Black Power movement, peace movement. I would have to say there was racial tension, not only in Vietnam, but at many of the bases stateside as well. We wanted more civil rights, fair and equal opportunities. Same type of individuals who are challenging you at home are challenging you in the military.
After Vietnam, black men and women volunteered in large numbers, and African Americans were rising in the ranks. Samuel Gravely, first African American admiral in the U.S. Navy. Frank E. Peterson, Jr., first African American general in the Marines. Hazel Johnson Brown, first African American female general in the U.S. Army. General Colin Powell's appointment as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff marked a high point in an extraordinary legacy of service. In Operation Desert Storm, he led U.S. Armed Forces to one of the most impressive victories in military history. Today, African Americans continue to reach for new heights, like Captain Vernice Armour, who served in Operation Iraqi Freedom and became the first African American female combat pilot.
My dad was in the military, my grandfather was in the military. I'm also standing on very, very strong shoulders from the people that came before me, black female pilots, Tuskegee Airmen, General Peterson, first black aviator in the Marine Corps.
African Americans have valiantly answered the call to defend our country time and again.
facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please remain standing as you are able for the posting of the colors by the South Boston Excel High School Junior ROTC Color Guard, the singing of our national anthem by United States Air Force Master Sergeant Retired Paul Gaucher Zayas, followed by our invocation by the Reverend Pedro Castro of the Grant AME Zion Church. Color Guard, post the colors.
March time. March. Ready. Face. Color. Halt. Freeze there. Arms. Ma'am, color guard present. Post the color! Yes, ma'am. Order. Arms. March time. March. Ready. Face. Forward, march, march time, march. Ready, face. Color guard, halt. Hold, colors. Present, arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order, arms. Left, face. Forward, march. Forward, march.
You may be seated. Let us pray. Good day, God, to every active and veteran soldier, family members, and supporters across this incredible Boston Strong community. We have gathered today to remember reflect, console, heal, and encourage one another. America's most outstanding citizens who took the oath to protect this country and serve honorably. Today we honor Black veterans and the 2 million plus who actively serve our great country today. We call for a spirit of koinonia where the faithful commit to the improvement of community life for all humanity. We pray that this gathering will fuel our personal and collective journeys. We pray for President Joe Biden as he heads our country during these unprecedented times, the National Atlantic Treaty Organization, President Volodymyr Zelensky, and the Ukrainian people. We pray for Russia. We pray for peace. We pray for continued blessings in every way for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Governor Charlie Baker, our esteemed Mayor, the Honorable Michelle Wu, and Commissioner Robert Santiago. Finally, we pray that you bless this meal that has been prepared for the nourishment of our bodies and for the joy of this fellowship. This is our prayer. Let us say amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the lone table at the front of the room. You may have noticed this table set before you. It is filled with symbolism. I will explain. This table is set for our prisoners of war and those missing in action from all wars. They are not with us today. Their chairs are empty. But save for their hope to return, let us remember their absence. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Commissioner of Veteran Services for the great city of Boston, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Santiago.
Oh, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Oh, that's not good enough. I know some of y'all already have some coffee in you. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good morning. Whew, that's a little bit better. First and foremost, I want to thank the South Boston JROTC for the color guard as well as setting up the POW MIA table. I want to welcome everyone, all of you here today to have braved this crazy New England weather we've been having. I think tomorrow is going to be 85 degrees, followed by 20s in the late evening. I also wanted to welcome a few people. I want to welcome our Councilor Erin Murphy, I'm sorry. She is the new chair of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee on the City Council. President and Navy veteran, Councilor Ed Flynn, could not be with us today. I want to welcome Secretary Poppy, the Secretary of the Department of Veteran Services for the state of Boston, Andy McCauley, the CEO and President of the New England Center and Home for Veterans, Chief Hooley, our Chief of EMS. Where's Chief Hooley? Yeah, there he is. He's one of the closest to the food back there. And then there's Ayan Abdi, who's representing Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley here today as well. I would like to thank Will. Well, you're at Will Noah. There you are. He is the Director of Fair Housing, Equity, and Civil Rights Office, and Barry Reeves, who's the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Boston Planning and Development Agency. I want to thank them both for their partnership in making sure that this event is going to be a memorable one for all of us here today. But before we start, I would like to call up Will Noah, front and center. Barry, can you join me? Well, Noah, you are hereby authorized to wear the rank of colonel and are assigned as the officer of the day. You will not receive any form of compensation in your appointment, and this appointment will terminate immediately upon completion of the 5th Black Veterans Appreciation Brunch. As the officer of the day, you're responsible on this assigned day of February 26, 2022, for overseeing this event, to ensure all in attendance are joined in fellowship and cultivating relationships, to ensure everyone leaves with a positive and impactful experience. Barry, would you please pin Colonel Noah? While he's pinning him, I will talk a little bit about Will. Will and the Office of Fair Housing and Equity have been great partners in making this event a reality the past few years. He is a dear friend of mine that I can count on. Will is a member of the Massachusetts Black Lawyers Association and is now the 4th Executive Director to lead the Office of Fair Housing, Equity, and Civil Rights in the City of Boston. Will is a leader in City Hall who possesses great knowledge of city government and has great ability balancing relationships between local government and the public at large. As the Executive Director, Will oversees the activities of the Office of Fair Housing, Equity, and Civil Rights, which includes the Boston Fair Housing Commission. He engages and serves residents, especially the most vulnerable, and advocates for fair housing equity throughout the city of Boston. He is a subject matter expert on fair housing laws and provides strategic leadership to the mayor, city council, and senior city management to ensure fair and access to housing, public services, accommodations, and activities to all who call Boston home. Congratulations, Colonel. Today marks the 5th African American Veterans Appreciation Brunch. This brunch, from its first year, is to honor and engage our African American veterans and their families. Today will be no different. The most important thing today is that after 2 years, we are finally able to get together in person. The last time we had this brunch was in February of 2020, and it was the last event before the pandemic changed our lives forever. I am happy to say that this brunch is the first official in-person event we are having as we continue to adjust to a new norm. Today, this event is all about our Black veterans and their family. It's not about just any one person. According to the Department of Defense, African Americans make up 17% of active duty military in 2017. This is a vital statistic that deserves to be humanized, especially as we celebrate Black History Month. We have the chance to reflect on and celebrate the many contributions of African Americans in our history. Since the birth of our country and the fight for independence, African American men and women have played significant roles in the wars and conflicts throughout American history. During the Battle of Fort Wagner in 1863, Sergeant William Harvey Carney picked up the fallen flag from his lifeless comrade. He waved the flag for all of the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry to see and led the way to the parapet to plant the colors. Carney became the first African American to receive the Medal of Honor. During World War I, as you heard in the video, The Harlem Hellfighters battled Germans abroad and racism at home, demonstrating a remarkable commitment to country. The 369th Regiment spent 191 days on the front, more than any other Americans. Its members also spread the love of jazz to Europe. In 1941, the 926 all-black Tuskegee Airmen carried out hundreds of escort missions during World War II, never losing a single plane to the enemy. In the same war, Oleta Crane was one of 3 black women who entered officer training and the only woman black officer to be retained after World War II. During her years of service and later as a civilian, she fought against racism and segregation in the military and was a trailblazer for women veterans. Boston's own Edward O. Gourdine, a Harvard scholar, athlete, lawyer, soldier, judge, and Olympian. In all of his endeavors, he proved to be a barrier breaker and an African American of many firsts. Gourdine was the first African American appointed to the Superior Court of Massachusetts. He served in World War II as commanding officer of the 372nd Infantry Regiment and later activated for duty in the Korean War. He retired as the first African American with the rank of Brigadier General in Massachusetts. Today, as many of us know, there is a park named after him in Union Square. Soon, there is going to be a statue honoring and memorializing General Gourdine and his accomplishments in the park that bears his name. This park will also pay special tribute to the tens of thousands of black Americans who have defended the United States in conflicts large and small throughout our nation's history, from the American Revolution to the present day. This long overdue recognition could not happen without the tireless dedication and advocacy of Ralph Brown Jr. Ralph, a veteran of the 222nd Field Artillery Battalion, campaigned for Gourdine to be memorialized and for black veterans to be honored and recognized. Ralph was also very influential with the Massachusetts branch of the National Juneteenth Holiday Campaign. Ralph was also a past commander of the William E. Carter Post Legion, American Legion Post 16. He passed away in 2012 and would have had his 91st birthday this past February 20th. His work continues through his wife, Wilma, and their children. Wilma? There's Wilma right there. Since we last met, we have lost some very impactful community legends. And today, I would like to recognize them. They were all very active and well-respected members of the community. These legends gave to the entire community, and their hearts and kindness knew no limits. So today, we honor their service, courage, and most of all, their tireless devotion to our community. Their dedication to the city of Boston, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the United States of America will always be remembered. Benny F. White, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. He supported and often held leadership positions in numerous organizations, to include the William E. Carter American Legion Post 16 and the Prince Hall Masons. He was a founder and late commander of the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Regiment, Company A. He served as the unit's first sergeant and was later promoted to command as first lieutenant. He proudly led the unit in President Barack Obama's inaugural parades in January 2009 and 2013. He was instrumental in inspiring the reactivation of the 54th Regiment within the Massachusetts National Guard. In recognition of his exceptional devotion to Commonwealth and country, Benny F. White was promoted to the rank of Captain, Company A, 54th Regiment, by the authority of the Adjutant General of Massachusetts. William C. Netter, Sergeant, United States Air Force. Bill dedicated his life to actively helping his surrounding communities in the city of Boston. He held many positions, to include commander of the William E. Carter American Legion Post 16. After returning from the Air Force, Bill continued to serve his community working at the Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority. He later retired after 24 years of dedicated service. Bill was an esteemed member of Widow Son Masonic Lodge. Anywhere you went in the city, you'd be sure to find someone who knew his name, William C. Netter. Zelma E. Bostic, Lieutenant, United States Navy. Reverend Zelma Bostic served as a Navy chaplain and was the 7th African-American woman chaplain on active duty and a founding member of the Cambridge Women Veterans Organization. Reverend Zelma Bostic was a member of the Grant AME Church and was active, go ahead, and was active in the New England Annual Conference, Women in Ministry, and served with members of Grant's Commission on Social Action. She was a shining light to everyone she touched. I could tell you that in her presence, I always felt safe and at peace. Elizabeth Beth Williams. Beth succeeded her father, a Navy veteran, as president and CEO of Roxbury Technology Corporation. Some of her many accolades include the American Express and Women Presidents Organization CEO of the Year Award, the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council President's Award, and the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts Presidents and Community Leadership Award. Beth became involved with the Triad Veterans and assisted in making connections for building the plan for the development of Thank You for Your Service, a veterans healthcare advocacy model to ensure uniform care for veterans that use community-based healthcare. Fern L. Cunningham Terry. Fern created public artworks with a keen focus on Black history, the Black community, and Black women's unsung stories. Many of her signature works grace the Boston landscape. Her final contribution is a Justice Edward O. Gourdine statue to be unveiled later this year at the Justice Edward O. Gourdine Park in Union Square. One of her best-known works is the Harriet Tubman Memorial, the first statue honoring a woman on city-owned land in Boston. Fern also created the historical Richard Allen statue in Philadelphia in his honor as the founder of the AME Church. Randy James Tatum. In appreciation of his tireless service and leadership to his community, Randy served many roles in the community. His legacy began in 1963 when he attended the Civil Rights March in Washington, D.C., and continued through the years as a dedicated leader in the Massachusetts Democratic Party and founder of the Multicultural Heritage Foundation. Randy was also instrumental in the development and design of the Justice Edward O. Gourdine Veterans Memorial Park, named after his uncle. Quick story that I want to share with you about Randy. One time we were both walking after a meeting, and he expressed to me that, and he regretted that he did not serve in the military. All I could do is look at him and tell him, to serve your community, you don't have to wear a uniform. And that's exactly what he's did, and that's exactly what many of you out here are doing today. And the Colonel as well. In addition to those I've mentioned, condolences and prayers to the families and friends who have lost loved ones during these difficult few years. For all of you who have lost a loved one, veteran or not, let's honor them during this moment of silence.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Thank you, Huey. African American veterans have given us freedom, security, and this, the greatest nation on earth. It's impossible to put a price on that, but we must always remember them, always appreciate them, and always honor them. We must take care of them. As Americans, that is what we must do. Not today, but every day. There are 3 veterans today that we would like to honor and recognize with a couple of awards. The first person I would like to call up is Bruce Bickerstaff. Barry, Will, can you join me? Oh, no, not you. Will, Colonel, can you join me, please?
This Veteran Community Award is presented to Bruce Bickerstaff. Bruce Bickerstaff, an Air Force veteran and lifelong advocate for other veterans, he served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for many years, helping shape Boston's growth. He was also instrumental in creating a monument to General Edward O. Gordine and the new Gordine Park in Roxbury. He also served as president of the Roxbury Trust Fund, a fund established in 1990 to distribute grants to local nonprofits. A tireless advocate for his fellow veterans, he is a shining example of excellence in all he does. For all that you do for your community and fellow veterans, the City of Boston honors you with this award. Congratulations and thank you.
Stay up here. The next person I would like to call up, I actually had the honor of being on a panel discussion with him earlier this week. Ernie Washington.
The Lieutenant Colonel Jared Eric Hill Legacy Award is presented to Ernest Washington, Jr. Ernest Washington is a Vietnam veteran and a Purple Heart recipient. He gives back to his community in many ways. In 1980, he founded Vanguard Parking and General Services Corporation. Through this company, he employs inner-city Boston residents and gives them job opportunities with Northeastern University, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and other organizations. He is also a member of the General Edward O. Gordine Statue Committee and was instrumental in establishing a memorial to General Gordine in Roxbury. For your continued devotion and commitment to the veterans of Boston and their families, a grateful city says thank you and congratulations.
And Veterans Benefits Clearinghouse.
And the Veterans Benefit Clearinghouse. Co-founder, right? That's right. Our next recipient is Barry Reeves. Come on up here, shipmate.
Barry. The City of Boston Veteran Outstanding Service Award is presented to Barry Reeves. Barry Reeves is an Army veteran who served on active duty for 18 years. He has a deep background in diverse leadership development, diversity and inclusion programming, analytics, and effectiveness. He's used these skills as an equal opportunity advisor for the United States Army while managing the Discrimination Complaints Program for the United States Naval Air Systems Command and now in the City of Boston. Barry now serves as the Boston Planning and Development Agency's first ever Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. In this role, he develops and manages the BPDA's equity and diversity priorities, including increasing participation in city contracting, developing partnerships, and creating a more inclusive and welcoming Boston. For your example of dedication, devotion, and continued advocacy for all veterans, a grateful city says thank you and congratulations.
Before we continue, Thank you, Colin. Before we continue, I also wanted to recognize Senator Nick Collins, who's here with us today as well. Senator Collins. I also have a couple of announcements. Who? Oh, Liz Miranda, I didn't see you next to him. I'm sorry, how are you? Rep Liz Miranda, too. I just noticed the senator because he was standing up getting some drinks. What'd you say? All right. With that, a couple of announcements. Thank you, Commander. In partnership with UMass Boston, we, the City of Boston Veteran Services, will be hosting a Women's Veterans Roundtable in late March. And Commander Meredith Tewitt, we would like you to be a part of that. There will be more details to follow. I'm actually working with Lavelle Seymour, who's the Director of Veterans Center over there at UMass, who's a Marine Corps veteran herself, in working out the details of the panel. But look out for that. It's going to be another great event. The Veterans and Friends of Gordon Park will be holding a Veterans Vendor and Informational Fair in honor of African American Military Heritage Day in the lobby of the Bowling Building on Saturday, May 21st, 2022. And lastly, the Veterans and Friends of Gordon Park will also have an inaugural fundraising event on Saturday, September 17th, 2022, is also going to be held in the Bowling Building. Now at this time, unfortunately, Council President Ed Lynch, who's a Navy veteran, cannot join us today, but we have Councilor Aaron Smith, who will be coming up here to say a few words on behalf of the City Council. Aaron Murphy, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Yes, so Councilor Flynn, who was the former chair of Veterans Affairs for the City Council, isn't feeling well. But I am proud to stand here to say that I am now the chair of Veterans Affairs. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you. I'm also the proud daughter of a Navy and Marine retired. My dad was in the Navy during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Papa Jack was a Marine, and he flew Marine One and was actually flying President Johnson when Kennedy was assassinated. So he was flying him when he was sworn in to be president. So I grew up in a family where military stories were like part of our life. And one of the things also, my job before I became a city councilor was I was a Boston public school teacher for over 20 years. And when I look, thank you. And the names mentioned earlier in memory, and also the people who got awards, thank you. But it reminds me that we really need to do a better job with our curriculum in our schools, teaching correct history and making sure that we're teaching our children not just this month, which I always said as a teacher, it's a month where there's a school vacation, so you actually lose a week. So there's 40 weeks in our school year, and 3 weeks a year is not enough to be teaching. It should be part of everyday curriculum. So one of the things I'll definitely advocate for is that Black history is indefinitely veterans. And as the chair, I do stand here to say thank you for your sacrifices and also your family. We all know anyone who's in the military, their family also sacrifices for us. So thank you for that. And also, as the new chair of Veterans Affairs, I've already formed my relationship with Commissioner Santiago, but I do promise you that we will be working together closely to make sure that our Black veterans are getting what they deserve. I always say it's not something extra, it's what you earned, you worked hard for it, and you deserve what we all deserve. So thank you for today, thank you for including me, and I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. And I could say between myself and Councilor Murphy, when I briefed her on the state of our office, we actually put aside an hour for that meeting. We actually ended up talking almost 4 hours. So it was a very, very good, productive meeting. I'd also like to introduce the Suffolk District Attorney, Kevin Hayden. See, oh, there he is in the back. He's here too. Thank you for coming, sir. Thank you for being a part of this. Right now, I would like, you want to do the keynote? Okay. Well, at this time, I won't hold you up anymore. brunch is served. Just a couple of things that I want to bring up before we continue the program, and I introduce our mayor, Mayor Michelle Wu. Brother Haywood Fennell is sending out a petition around, and is a petition in support for the creation of a U.S. commemorative stamp series. The summary and background of this petition is the art exhibit Triumph Unsung Military Heroes was commissioned by Triad Veterans League. It depicts the valor and bravery of African American military veterans dating back from the American Revolution up to World War II. The exhibit serves to educate the public about an under-recorded history that is a pivotal chapter in American history and freedom. Action petition for we, the undersigned, are concerned citizens, and signed this petition in support for the art exhibit, Triumph, Unsung Military Heroes, and having the exhibit created into a U.S. postal stamp series. If you would like to sign the petition is right here. We're going to turn it back to Stanley Thompson, who has a petition. Another thing that is circulating around is the Black Veterans Calendar. I'm sure some of you have seen it already. It's learning more about American history. This is a 2022 one. It talks about Black veterans. Inside the insert here, you can see the statue in its mold of Edward O. Gordine, which will be placed in bronze and eventually going to be in the Edward O. Gordine Park. And then, of course, it goes through the history of Black veterans throughout the series and throughout the months. So if you're interested in the calendar of Black veterans, please also see Haywood Fennell, who's sitting pretty much in the middle there with the Officer of the Day. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I would like to introduce our mayor, my boss, Mayor Michelle Wu.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Please keep the applause going for the best Boston Veterans Commissioner, Commissioner Santiago. We're so grateful for your service. Good morning, or is it afternoon? Good afternoon, everyone. Good day, everyone. I want to recognize so many who have served and continue to serve. Each and every one of you in this room really deserves the individual recognition. I will just list a few folks who are in elected office and who are serving our city. We're joined here by Sheriff Steve Tompkins, by District Attorney Hayden, by State Senator Collins, I don't know, Nick is somewhere, by Representative Liz Miranda, City Councilors Ruth C. Lujen, Councilor at Large, also City Councilor at Large Aaron Murphy. Of course, we are joined by our very important partner at the state, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Secretary Poppy. Thank you for your leadership. We have a couple chiefs in the room from the City of Boston too. Chief of Community Engagement, Brianna Milor. Chief of EMS, Chief Hooley, thank you for all you've been doing. Did I miss anyone? Okay, everyone in this room. Thank you, Ms. Jumata. I also want to thank City Council President Ed Flynn, who could not be here because he is recovering from COVID, but he never misses one of these, and so I wanted especially to thank him for his commitment to serving veterans and military families as well. I am so honored to be reviving our city's tradition of honoring our Black veterans in person after having to cancel last year's brunch because of the pandemic. Massachusetts has a rich, proud history of Black residents standing up and fighting for our freedom, for our collective future. And even just speaking to folks around the room who have served, our veterans are artists, our caterers, our pastors, our civic leaders. You continue to serve our communities in each and every aspect of your lives, and for that we are incredibly grateful for you. Your service is in a long legacy of service in this city and this Commonwealth. From the days of the Revolution, when Crispus Attucks stood against the British in defense of our nation's independence, to the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, which defended the Union in the Civil War. To the legendary commanding officer of the 372nd Infantry Regiment in World War II, Edward Gourdine, who after combat continued to serve in the National Guard until 1959 and has broken so many barriers. It is a long legacy that our city, our Commonwealth, and our country treasures, and we are grateful for you. Today, we also get to honor several individuals who have gone above and beyond and continue to do so. It's not an easy choice that one makes to serve your country. It's a challenging one, an honorable one rooted in a powerful sense of responsibility to uphold and protect what's larger than ourselves. As I've been watching the news lately, we see this now unfolding around the world. I want to send our thoughts, prayers, wishes, strength to Ukraine and the many families there who are standing up now, and we're seeing just what the impact is of being called into service. So today's honorees stand firmly in that legacy, serving the people of Boston and our larger Commonwealth each and every day. I will just recognize Barry Reeves, who serves as the Director of Equity and Inclusion for the BPDA, working to ensure Boston's growth is guided by all of our residents. Ernest Washington Jr., after earning a Purple Heart, went on to found a company that connects Boston residents to job opportunities with countless nonprofits, public employers, colleges, universities. Thank you so much for what you do. He's also a cameraman over here. Mr. Bruce Bickerstaff, whose legacy encompasses time having served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a very long time serving our city, president of the Roxbury Trust Fund, and who, alongside Mr. Washington, played an integral role in memorializing General Gourdine with a monument at our park in Roxbury named in his honor. I'm so excited for the unveiling of the statue later this year, where it will stand as a symbol of our commitment to supporting, honoring, and memorializing our Black veterans, and as a reminder of all the Black leaders and heroes who believe so deeply in the promise of our ideals, in the possibility ahead of us, a future where we will make good eventually on upholding life and opportunity for all our residents. You risked your lives to defend these ideals, and today and every day, the City of Boston's charge is to realize that vision and live up to the promise that you have sacrificed so much for. So I want to close by thanking each and every one of you for your service, for your courage, for your belief in our nation and our communities. You inspire all of us to be a better Boston, and congratulations especially to today's honorees. It's such an honor to join you.
Thank you, Mary Lou, and thank you for everything you do for our community here in the city of Boston. We're all behind you 110%. And thank you for recognizing those in the community as well. At this time, we're going to still take a couple of more minutes while people are eating, and then we're going to get started with the second half of our program. And then it's going to be a panel discussion that's going to be moderated by our very own Barry Reeves. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to start Phase 3 of our appreciation brunch. First phase was the early portion, then we went into the brunch portion, and now we're going to get into the panel discussion portion. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, Barry Reeves.
Hello everyone, how's everybody doing? Where's Carrie at?
He's coming out of the kitchen right now.
Can we get him out here? Because we ought to do better at making sure that we give our people recognition and props for the service they render. That's what this event's all about. So we'll get him out here. I want to read a quick bio of him. So about Chief, born in Kingston, North Carolina, so Tar Heel just like I am. Mr. Barry has over 30 years of experience as a professional chef. He started his career in the United States Marines and has since held positions of chief positions at the Marriott Hotel, Legal Seafoods, Boston University, and City Fresh Foods. Perry Gourmet Services prides itself on quality and customer service and frequent customer care. Claire Knowles of the Massachusetts Black Library Network favors Perry because his food provides not only that looks beautiful, but tastes wonderfully fresh. On top of that, he takes the worry out of planning by providing professional, reliable, and Professional Service. Where's Perry? Perry, come on up here.
Y'all can clap loud at that. This food's amazing.
Right.
Thank you, thank you.
So now that we got him on stage, can we give Perry a round of applause for just his wonderful job?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We appreciate you, and like I told you before, I'm not intimidated by the uniform. Army and Marines can get along.
Of course, of course.
We want to say on behalf of the amazing staff and the Office of Veteran Services and the other agencies that are, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for this, and we hope that we'll continue to do a lot more work together.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. We'll give you a applause.
Thank you, thank you.
And a round of applause for my staff, please.
And a round of applause for the staff who graciously served us and made sure we had our food.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, bro. Thank you.
Looking good in uniform.
Thank you.
Simplify.
Simplify.
All right, I have the honor of introducing the keynote speaker. We're going to do a video. Can everybody hear me? All right. So, Andrea Gail Bennett, Colonel retired Andrea Gail Bennett, served for more than 35 years in the Massachusetts Army National Guard as a chief physician assistant and battalion surgeon. She made history as the first African-American female colonel in the Massachusetts State Army National Guard, and the first African-American to hold the position of state surgeon for the Joint Force Headquarters. That's amazing in itself. In 2009, she deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. She also worked as a physician assistant for more than 20 years with the Harvard Vanguard Medical Associates, where she earned a number of awards, including Key Contributor Award and the YMCA Black Achiever Award. Colonel Bennett serves on the Governor's Advisory Council on Veteran Services and serves as the corporate secretary with the Veterans Business Owner Initiative. She also serves on the Board of Trustees for the North Shore Community College.
20 years ago, I never could have imagined that I would have served in the Massachusetts Army National Guard as a PA, a physician assistant, for 38 years, retired at the rank of colonel, then receive a state promotion to brigadier general as part of the Massachusetts National Guard's organized militia. Good morning. My name is Andrea Gail Bennett, and it is my honor to have been asked to be a panelist for this year's Black History Month Veteran Brunch. I'm disappointed that I cannot be with you in person, but at the same time, I'm excited for you and the great panel discussions you will have. Today's theme is personal experience in the military, so I will share one experience that stands out to me as a woman that occurred during my deployment. It was 2009, and I remember missing companionship and simply touching other people. But because of my rank and because I'm a female, it was difficult to just hang out. Fraternization is not allowed. General order, number, whatever. Most people my rank were men, white men. Men were not allowed in women's quarters and vice versa. So I was lonely occasionally, often, because I didn't have another woman with similar experiences to mine to talk to. I've made friendships, male and female, young and old, lower and upper ranks, but there's a certain distance that must be maintained while deployed to avoid the appearance of any misconduct. There was no touching. I touch when I talk, and felt that I could not touch any male friends because of the possibility of someone misconstruing the relationship. This loneliness and feeling of isolation while surrounded by thousands of people is a direct result of the historic, systematic, intentional, and sometimes unintentional exclusion in the senior ranks. Don't get me wrong, my experiences in the military taught me a great deal, and I wouldn't change it because I've grown and achieved in ways I never could have imagined. However, when I look at the Massachusetts Guard, loneliness does not need to exist. It shouldn't exist. The demographics of the Guard reflect a diverse force at the lowest echelons of command. So they can do better. The leadership challenge is to promote this diverse force at both the senior NCO and officer corps level. Education, training, and mentorship are the keys. I spent many more years as a captain than anyone should have, because in my early years, I really had no idea how the system worked. I had no idea about the career path for an Army officer. In fact, there was real concern that I would be discharged because I was not selected for promotion to major and was coming against a mandatory discharge. Then someone mentored me. Mentors are incredibly important at every age. It doesn't matter if you're still in high school and trying to figure things out, or if you are retired and trying to figure things out. We all need someone who has been there and done that, who is willing to help us talk through so that we see all sides of decisions and are exposed to opportunities. And when the opportunity arises, we should be a mentor to someone else. It was that mentorship that I received that led to the precise military education and the appropriate military training that is directly responsible for me achieving the rank of colonel in 2012 and making history twice in the Massachusetts Army National Guard. I'll close with this. Loneliness or isolation undermines a ready and reliable force. In order to enhance the military experience for future servicemen and women, each one of us needs to embrace our leadership abilities. We are all leaders. We all have the ability to have influence. Let's use that superpower to implement or plan goals within our sphere of influence. Let's use that superpower to increase awareness for opportunities for diversity and enhancing inclusion. I challenge everyone to renew your efforts, your words, your intentions, to work together, to encourage each other, to lift each other up, and create an environment we want, that we need, and we deserve. Thank you for your attention and allowing me to share these thoughts. My hope is that this message speaks to everyone in the room, and for all of you to enjoy the remainder of the program. Thank you.
We got two guest speakers up here to go ahead. First, we're going to introduce Group Speaker staff. Give my hands. Colonel Anthony Henson. Come on up there. We got to share? Okay, fine, that's good. We can adjust it a lot. Please have a seat. Gentlemen, please have a seat.
You have to reach over. You have to reach over.
All right, come on up, please. And go ahead and see. Let's give him a round of applause one more time. So we're gonna have to share mics. We're gonna have a gap to overcome. That's normal. So the goal of this panel and really this discussion is to really talk about the experience of as an African American soldier in service and what is meant to you, and really leave a message for the community what we want to take about this. This year's theme is Black Health. And so the first question I want to ask the panel, which we're going to turn, is that what motivated you to join the armed services? Let's start with Bruce.
Well, being a product of the 67.
You got to put your mic up closer.
Closer? All right, thank you. Graduating in 1967, at the height of the Vietnam War, and probably watching too much television. All right.
Well, bring that mic up to your mouth. You got to bring it up.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
I was looking to become that man going into the next phase of my life. So I had 7 brothers and 1 sister, all of my brothers served except for one in some fashion or form in the military. My oldest brother he is passed, but he is a Tuskegee Airman. So there were a number of different reasonings. And again, my personal challenge, you know how our male ego is. We need to toughen up and, can you hear me? Toughen up and get more discipline. So that was what motivated me. Fortunately, I'm from a matriarchal dominated family. My mother, my aunts, my sister. This is 1967, and I said I was going in the Marines. And this is at my high school graduation, and they started crying like I was about to do something that's, well, horrendous. I think in effect it saved my life and my psychology, because in 67, again, that was the height of the Vietnam War. A cousin of mine who was a year older than I was at Pork Chop Hill, a number of different things. And it was never the same psychologically, physiologically, because of the trauma of war. So
that's what motivated you.
That's what motivated me to go into the military. Again, my mother and the rest of the females in my family, again, kept me from doing something real crazy at the time.
Bernie, what about you? What motivated you to join the service?
Well, I won't call it the ultimate motivation, but the draft. I was drafted into the military. Right out of high school, I went to Boston Credit School, and I got out 1 month and got the greetings in the mail the next month. So, coming from an entire family of veterans in the military, the unanimous call was just go do the work, man, and come back home. Go do the work, don't argue, and listen to some of your friends that want to take off and leave the country. Go do the work and come back. And that's what I did. And I have to say that the entire experience has a direct relationship with what I'm doing today, which, you know, profit's not the only motivating factor in my decision-making as being a business person. And I've been able to garner some partners, some big partners, to help me do the work. So, you know, after the military experience, and it was traumatic, don't get me wrong. Being wounded in action is trauma. But Marines are just trained to minimize the trauma. Just like most men of all not armed forces. So it was the luck of the cards that I survived and came back to a family loaded with veterans, open arms, all my mentors. Started with my dad. So on down the line, uncles, all of them served, a couple of them served in action in Korea. And the Korean vet is the most mad at this country. And I think it's similar to the Vietnam War. And the madness comes in a different number of dimensions and one of them is putting a hurting on another colored person. And that is the kind of theater that I was in the foxhole in Vietnam. What are we really doing here? For someone else, against someone else. That in certain situations in country, you were our friends. And that experience helped me with everything I've done since I came back home. And starting the businesses with the trauma I just experienced, it was easy. And convincing certain corporate partners to offer community residents permanent employment, as long as it came through my training program, which I kind of built around boot camp. So the goal of all of it was mental health, how to manage it, even before you go in the military and coming out. If it wasn't for the services of the Veterans Benefits Clearinghouse, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And they had a full force of veterans and political partners, etc., with the whole purpose of increasing the quality of life, returning veterans of Vietnam, and looking at the history of veterans of color.
Definitely getting that. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Colonel Henson, what made you join this armed services?
Hollywood. Actually, Hollywood. I'm not gonna. I grew up. I was born in 1963. My father was a World War II veteran. My brother was a Navy Vietnam veteran. So I came to being a young adult in the late 70s, early 80s. Well, there was a new enemy. It was called, the communists. We were fighting the communists, okay? And it was romanticized in Hollywood. There were a lot of movies. And I wanted to be that guy that told other people what to do, and how to do it, where to do it. I wanted that. I saw that power. And I needed it. Growing up in the South Bronx, I felt marginalized, And I felt I needed to get that power through the military, and that's what I did. And even though we were fighting democracy and communism abroad, we still were, fighting for equal rights back here in the United States. So I wanted to be some type of a hero, and that's where I thought I could be.
So keep Mike. I'm coming with the next question. So Colonel Henson, Colonel Bennett talked about her experience as an African American officer and being the only one in some cases.
I know where you're going.
I know where I'm going.
I know exactly where you're going.
Okay, so can you share, which many of us have had this experience of, what it's like as an African American being in the Army, wanting to serve your country, however, feeling sometimes where you don't have the same support and guidance to achieve?
My first unit was in New Jersey, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, the 202nd MI Battalion. I'm a military intelligence officer. If 300 Army officers were on active duty for that year were given a military intelligence branch, 2, maybe 3 were black. Maybe 1 was Hispanic, and that was in the reserve. So my officer basic course, I went with half West Pointers, and there were only 2 blacks officers, 1 West Pointer female and me. I went to my first battalion, 250 people, enlisted and officers. I was one of 2 officers, and I was one of 15 people in that branch. Why? Because military intelligence is a restricted branch. It was hard to get that branch, and we saw it. We weren't allowed it. You had to be in the know. You had to know people. You had to be in the right places. So it started out terrible for me, being a second lieutenant, in a counterintelligence battalion. And there was no person ahead of me. There was no colonel, or to mentor me, or captor to mentor me. You know, it's by the luck of the draw that I got out of active duty and formed my own path through the individual mobilization or augmentee program, where I can assign myself to active duty units as I please and serve with them. And that's how I went through. And even up until this day, I was in Iraq, 2005, one of my deployments in 2005 at the SIOC, the Combined Intelligence Operations Center, with all the other nations. Must have been 400 or 500 people in there. You know how many people of color, both officers and enlisted from all the branches? Well, it's somewhere on this hand. So that's the answer I can give you. Okay? So, but it was very few.
Ernie, same question. What was it for you in your experience when it came to being serving as an African American, and what was the experience like for you? What can you help the audience better understand what it was like for you serving on active duty as an African American soldier?
Well, the duty stations, what been mentioned throughout the evening. In terms of my experience, everything happened in Vietnam in terms of my motivating factors. And in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, it was my family. And I consider Veterans Benefits Clearinghouse my family, but I can't stress more the mental health piece. And mine was in bad shape, and it had to be revitalized and healthy. And it was the military experience not only gave me this dilemma, but helped erase it because of the information, the counseling, and just the communication with other veterans to help keep my spirits lifted. So that was my particular.
Did you have that kind of support when you were serving in Vietnam and when you were serving in other?
Yes. I got really lucky. And my company commander in Vietnam, we're still friends today. But he was just an extraordinary commander. And I give him all the credit, and his subordinates and all of his lieutenants, all of them. I give them credit for not only keeping us alive, but preparing us as if we're going to survive, and what are you going to do for your community. And he was that kind of mentor that sustained himself till today. And he's still giving me that kind of guidance, and I bless him for it, because A, it's something he didn't have to do, but not being African American and taking the time he took, not only with me, but with the survivors of our platoon, I had just a hat off until I closed my eyes. He didn't have to do any of that. He got us all together, wherever we were in the United States. Which we had Zoom back then, and had to be regular telephone, so it was up and down, but all of us were going through similar trauma in our day-to-day life. And I have to say that the Vietnam experience is the reason why I'm sitting here. It kind of molded me for success, and it wasn't all negative. Some of the skills I gained in a very negative situation were very powerful skills when I was in the boardroom. So I give credit to all of it in terms of the veteran experience, but it was the veterans themselves, starting with my family, that made sure that my mental health was in a place where it should be.
Bruce, would you share your experience as an African American during service and what that was like for you, experiences?
And as you well know, your first years, you're growing up. You're going from a boy to a man. And the realization of how you matriculate, much of it's based, like Ernie and the Colonel said, on your family surroundings. Well, when you, can you hear me? When you get to, pardon me, when you enter into the military, again, the family surrounds you. They give you, my brothers were giving me tips on what I might encounter. You know, teaching me protocols, understanding what may happen to you and with you. So be aware of these things in advance and don't learn by getting a knot on your head. Moving forward, it was the camaraderie. You recognize one of the things that military drills into each of us. No matter where we're from, we are all comrades, because the guy or the woman on your left or right, it was not mixed at the time. But the person on your left and right could be very well be responsible for you surviving. So you learn how to do these things with a sense of selflessness, and even the most extreme issues that one might have, whether race, religion, however, you overcome, because again, that person on your left or right, and you as well, may be responsible for either of those lives. And that has been a long-standing kind of brick in my own personal growth. Going to Vietnam in particular was one of those things that really kind of, from a cultural perspective, when you're in a theater of war, you realize that people, as Colonel said, you're blended in with people you would otherwise never know. You know, we're in the foxhole together. We're in the mess hall together. We're in a mess together. So as these stories blend, it's a growth process, because you're talking with somebody from Chicago, LA. I don't want to use a military term, but someplace out in Idaho with this, that, the other. You know what I mean?
Go with a B.
Yeah. And I mean, these things are broadening because they're challenging to your personal norms in my particular case. So, but that bond that you build, again, is something that continues on through the remainder of your life. That's how I have met and continue to work with, and it creates community. And that's how I met the likes of Ernie Washington and others, because even though we never knew one another, we had a singular sense of community, purpose, and drive.
That's a wonderful statement. I'm glad you said that. This is where we're going next. So can you share with the group, how do we strengthen the Black veteran community here in the state of Massachusetts and in the Commonwealth as well, in Boston and in the Commonwealth?
Well, one thing I applaud you, Commissioner Santiago and others, is a continuation of the voice. And again, learning generationally what needs to be done to reach out to the next cadre of folks. I know my experience in Vietnam was nowhere near what the Iran veterans have gone through. But at the same time, we recognize in our own lonely return to this country, because now it's thank you for your service. When we separated from the military, it's like baby killer, this, that, and the other. But we recognize the trauma of the experience, but it's kind of uniform as to how we approach it. When I know, I speak for myself, you know, it took me a while to turn in. You know, we didn't have an active outreach through VA programs and this kind. There was an absolute mistrust. But now that I'm older and I'm recognizing the need for that voice to actually not wait for a young person, a person who's recently out of the military, or even in the military for that fact, reach out to them because my experience was nobody reached out to me and I didn't reach out to anybody else. But that weakens that bond and weakens the experience because it takes a bit to get over those kind of things. I think that right now what we're talking about is the Iraqi Arab veteran and on and on. And I hope we can slow down on the veteran use and find a little peace in the world. But in this case, we have to do what we have to do. But I think reaching out and building broader networks of communication is important and key going forward.
Thank you. Ernie, what can we do as veterans who have served in different aspects to strengthen, how can we strengthen the Black veterans community here in Boston and the Commonwealth? Same question.
Well, one of the ways I think is, I think the entire history of what a lot of African American veterans have done is right up on the wall in Commander Toole's house, which is the Carter Post. It's right there on the wall, if you want to familiarize yourself. And I think what I've done is try to engage either with former students and professional friends of mine to visit the post and understand some of the history. And I think you'll get half of your information right there. And the other half from me was the family. And I was blessed or honored with most of the males who were in the military. And I got a World War II kind of reference and Korean War, and I blended that in with my experiences in Vietnam. And we also have tried to look at the veteran that's in a very difficult situation now abroad. And I hope it's not going to be a military conflict, but it sure looks like it's going to be on a partial note. Those young people that are in the military now that are raring to go, for lack of a better term. And it was kind of the same way I was because of the training, that kind of thing. But I see the veteran, just the military, the African American veteran, that Black veteran, as being a source through the Veterans Post of any kind of piece of the military experience with African Americans. It's all there. That's my opinion.
Colonel Hanson?
Say that question again?
What can we do as a community to strengthen the Black veterans of the community?
I'll show you. Members of the American Legion, please stand. Members of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, please stand. Military Order of World Wars, NCO organization. That's how. We need more people in those organizations. Thank you for your service, by the way. We need more people to be part of those organizations. Because we look around, we're all getting older now. And if the youth, which are sitting right there, don't take up the baton, not you. Okay? They don't take up the baton, there won't be any mantle of leadership to take up. So that's how we have to do it. We have to get more Black and Hispanic people involved with these veteran support organizations.
I'm going to say that. We come back to you. I got one more question. Can I have one more question? Okay, one more question. I will say this before we get to the last question to the group. We do need to bridge the gap with our younger soldiers. And we need to do more work because they need our voice. I've needed to hear every single person that's sitting on this panel because your experience helps me better understand my experience. And by understanding what you had to go through and the different trails that you had to blaze, sometimes by yourself, helps inform me on how to do it better. So when we come back to the community, we're stronger. And so I hope that while I'm glad that this lunch is back, that we take what we learned today and strengthen the community so that way we can continue to pass on the lessons learned, as they say in the Army, the lessons learned, right? The Army lessons learned, and strengthen our community to prepare us for service. There's quite a bit of issues that we need to solve within the Black community, and our veterans can be a part of that voice and leadership. So thank you for that. So last question. All right. You're on the hook. What message do you want to pass to the up and coming generation of soldiers, sailor, airmen, Marines, Coast Guard, Space Force now? Space Force, got it.
Any space cadets here?
And
Right there.
what would you want to pass on to them? Not only, but this is two now. Number one, in their service to the nation, but in their service to this community.
Learn the word what perseverance means, okay? You have to know what perseverance means. And Michael Jordan said 100% of the shots you don't take are missing, basically, you know? And I learned that word perseverance through, I used to live in the Bahamas when I was stationed with DEA. And there was this folk singer, his name was Bill Stubbs. And he wrote a song about perseverance, and it stuck with me forever. And this is what I want to read to the up and coming generation behind me, okay? This is a paraphrase from his song, but it speaks so well of what I mean by perseverance. Drive the nail right, hit it on the head. Strike with all your might when the iron is red. When you have work to do, you must do it with the will. Those who reach the top must first climb the hill. Standing on your foot, gazing at the sky, how do you get up if you never try? Though you will stumble a lot, don't dwell on the past. Try and try again, you'll succeed at last. Those are my words.
Same question.
Most of mine, again, is my family. And most of them are veterans. And we all see eye to eye into educating the young people in our family. And in my case, I taught in the Boston Public Schools. And in 2 different schools, both of the headmasters were Vietnam veterans that I served with in country. And they gave me the opportunity to do that in the classroom. So there was a class on African American military history. And I taught that class. And I think that those same kind of headmasters are out there now. Through the school system, I think is an interesting way that our young people can learn more about the work and the sacrifice of everybody that puts on a uniform, regardless of the branch or the term of service.
Same question, sir.
Would you repeat it? Sure. I'm the third in the line.
What message would you want to pass on to the younger adults, both the veterans, those future veterans, and the ones who are in, about their service and serving the nation and the service to their community here?
Well, first of all, from whatever cultural background, religious background, race relation, realize this is our country. And what you contribute to the protection and service to our country is invaluable. It will, each of you will make a mark as we go forward and protect the future of this country, because you are actually the base of what we have served for, to give you all the opportunity to move your futures forward and make America a better place. Second of all, do not be discouraged. As the Colonel was saying, there is a point where you think your service may not be appreciated as much. Appreciate yourself, because each of you are valuable to yourselves. And I think self-recognition is an important part of the impetus as you go forward. And we want to thank you for your future, all right? That's it.
That's it?
Drop the mic.
Drop the mic, that's it. I don't think I can follow that one.
You got it.
Oh, so I have to follow that.
You got it.
So here's my small 2 cents. Our community is important. And our community is at our best when we all put our hands to the plow, as my mom would say. And whatever part that is, sometimes it's leadership, sometimes it's an act of service. Whatever that part is, do it well. And Commissioner, we're gonna push on you. Because not only do we want to do brunches and celebrate and honor our legacy, but we've got a future to fulfill too.
I'm taking notes.
And so we need each and every person in this room to put our hands back to the plow to help our city and our community thrive, to make Boston a more equitable place for all of us. Thank you so much for the panel. Give a hand. And thank you so much for your service. Oh, we got a picture. Commissioner?
I'll take them.
Should we get the uniform in the middle?
Yes, I think the uniform should be in the middle.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because it looks like y'all were lined up in tight. I'm sorry, Commissioner, can you jump up there right quick? You know, we got to do the...
Come on, Commissioner. All right, there you go. Yeah, that's all right, don't worry.
Drop the mic.
Drop the mic, there you go.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kidnap your thing, but I just like to get it.
Right. For posterity.
Posterity.
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Thank you. Colonel?
Sir, I can share the podium with you. Thank you.
We'll see you again. Words well spoken.
All right, this time we're going to have our benediction from the pastor, Pedro Castro.
Lord, as we depart to our separate ways, as we ask your blessings, we ask that you bless this nation. Grant us strength and courage to carry on in service to you, our God, and to our country. Challenge us by example to honor our veterans, both living and departed, each and every day. Be with our leaders in the American Legion, other veterans organizations, and to those that represent us in state and federal government. Bless our veterans who lie in sickness and poor health. Grant them comfort and knowledge that they are not forgotten. Bless the families of those whose loved ones are still listed as POWs, those missing in action. And finally, O Lord, in this moment of silence, we dedicate ourselves anew for God and country. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, just to close out, I wanted to go ahead and thank a few people who played a big participation in this happening tonight. First of all, the staff at the Office of Veteran Services. We have Darrell Miller, John Kayla, John Allison, and Brian Bishop. Also wanted to thank the pastor, Pedro Castro from the Grand AME. Thank you very much, sir, for coming and blessing us and blessing this great event. Want to thank Bruce. Where's Bruce? That's Bruce right there. Bruce, Ernie, and Lieutenant Colonel Henson for being a part of the panel discussion. I seriously did take notes from when they were talking. So the work still is going to continue until we get where we need to get. I also wanted to thank Barry Reeves, for moderating, for being a great partner in ensuring that this event got done, and also the Will Nohe, who had to leave early. But when I say thank you all for coming, he will no longer be the officer of the day. And I think he knows that. So everybody, thank you all again. You know how to get a hold of me, how to get a hold of our office. Anything you need, please let us know. And for the JROTC from South Boston, XL High, you guys are fantastic. Thank you for coming out. Take care, everyone.